So I'll ask for questions at a certain time. And we're at, what's the date today? Community dinner. It's on now. 9th, April 9th. April 9th.
April 9th of 2021.
Of 2021. So we got 04092021. Nothing special, numerological. Nothing special. So this talk is about, if any of you haven't seen, I do have a YouTube channel with a previous PowerPoint and spring cleanse, 5 videos, one for the prep week, one for week 1, 2, and 3, and then one for ending. And that link will be on the description of this video too. There's a few people that wanted to, Chevalisa wanted to be here. If some of you know Chevalisa, and she's too tapped out. And there's a lady I'm becoming friends with, and she wanted to be here, but she had a hard day, and her boys are being, I don't want to go into it, film. So I have a number of insights that came up this past week, because last cleanse I did was, generally I don't go this long between cleanses, and the last cleanse was the fall cleanse, which was in October. So November, December, January, February, and November and December and January are my kryptonite months. I'm like this. I don't function well those 3 months. I'm a spring baby. I was born on May 1st. So this half of the year is my half of the year. And so I didn't feel very good going into this cleanse. And but the caffeine was huge. And so much so that why do you do a cleanse? You know, that's one of the questions you could ask yourself. Why do you do a cleanse? And I have done the cycle now hundreds of times, at least 100 cleanses. And every time I cleanse, I get a little bit sharper about what I'm going to reintroduce back, what I'm not going to reintroduce back. And so there's been gradually this pruning of the tree. And so now I'm sitting with the same insight I've had over the last 25, 30, 40 years is I shouldn't be doing caffeine. And then I get diluted and have one little dose, like, you know, there's that magic cup of coffee. It always comes along some point. And then I think, oh, I'll do that again. I'm going to repeat that experiment because I had great energy for 8 hours, right? It's like cocaine for me. You're always chasing that first dose. And then the next day, it might be half the amount of joy. And if I do coffee more than 3 or 4 days in a row, I'm yawning after 5 minutes of drinking. And that means my adrenals are little shriveled raisins and they can't put out any more adrenaline. If you're doing a stimulant and you're yawning 5 minutes later, your adrenals are shot. That's me. You should not be yawning after a stimulant, poison. I mean, my goodness, right? It's like, you know, you keep whipping the mule, finding the mule's gonna go, F you. Except I do have a little mule nervous system. Actually, I do get kicked, I guess, occasionally. So that's one thing. So we can go ahead and go a little round robin here for this part. So I noticed there's this suspicion about caffeine, and eating late was another one. I tend to work late, and so I started to prioritize eating earlier again. So much so that there were a few nights where I was like, well, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm not going to eat before bed. Wow. So that's another one, is eating late, bad habit. I mean, I tell my clients all the time, you know, like I got one poor guy, he's a dear friend of mine. He just got in a head injury on a bike accident. He came to see me. And he's fine, but he wanted to get on a, you know, he had a concussion. So he wants to get on a concussion protocol. And he was talking about his me time. You know, he's up till 12 or 1 every night. He's like, but the kids and, you know, the wife, and want to have some me time. And I'm like, oh, that's totally understandable. You know, want to have some personal time. And one lady that had pancreatic cancer years ago, stage 4, her option was she just got up earlier before everybody else and played piano for an hour. And she's still alive. We talked this story before. She's still alive because she went back to her joy, which was piano, every morning from 5 to 6 a.m. before the husband and the kids got up. And she was dying of stage 4 pancreas cancer when I came to her. And that's where we nudged her. That's where I nudged her. Because her cancer was in part because she gave everything away to everybody else. And she was a shriveled up raisin. A lot of women do that. Breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and pancreatic cancer. Those are the 3 that they're caregiver cancers. You've martyred yourself and you haven't repented. That's what the action of repent is, turn your energy around and bring it back to yourself. This is the action of giving. This is the action of repentance. This means turn around. That's all repent means. Turn around and look internally for your problem. That's another aspect of repentance. Anybody else? You got something that you're noticing is falling away from?
Yeah, it's been the best cleanse for me yet. I've done a little bit in summer, a little more in the fall, definitely more in the winter. I went ahead and did the winter one. But in all cases, I had a lot of trouble stopping late night eating, because late night eating has been a comfort for a long time. And I had little games that I made it okay and whatever else. And this is the best I've done. I'm really, really happy about it. And one of the things that was nice was I found out that I could eat a single fruit sometimes late at night and make that okay, meaning not like a fruit salad, a single kind. And I've had a tendency to want to eat until I'm full. That's been one of the things that I've done a lot as a company.
It's actually worth writing down.
Years. So it's been amazing that I've had so many more times it was easy to stop, and or to just feel so happy that I was going to bed without eating close to bed. That's been really good. Plus, over the months, I kept hearing try to eat 2 cups of beets, 2 cups of radishes every day. And I've been making these salads almost every day. I'm really happy. It feels like it fills me up in a really great way. And then I finally this time got the detox blend, and I mixed that with ground up chia seeds and raw goat milk. Oh my God, so fun. Just
the detox shake?
pudding. Yes.
Oh.
So good, like a pudding. And
wow. Okay.
and filled me up. Oh, and the first day I did it with 1.5 raw eggs, 3 eggs between Carl and me. And neither of us, we ate, drank it at 9:30 in the morning. He didn't eat anything until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He was not hungry until 4.
Wow.
I wasn't hungry, didn't eat anything until 2:30. That's amazing. Amazing. And it was so fun. Again, I often have the very first time I do something, it's the best. But I've kept enjoying it. It's been a great way to have another feeling of a treat, because it's a sweet that's healthy. And so lots of better things for me this time.
So
Really,
correct.
really love it.
On
Wait.
this cleanse, you do eat, sounds like,
What?
you do eat on this.
Oh, you eat everything fresh, whatever's
Yeah.
fresh out of the ground,
Mhm.
best things to eat.
Mhm.
So I've told before, I've been doing this all year. I go out in the garden to weed, and I'm eating the stems, chewing on the stems, and getting all the best stuff out of the stems, while keeping the tops or whatever to go in and put in the day's salad.
What if you don't have a garden?
And often it's so easy to get some containers and just do a few containers for a few greens.
Yeah.
And then really you can even just, as long as there's no Roundup or something somewhere, you can help to weed anybody's garden. There's so much edible. And I watch all the grasses and
With minor lettuce around.
yeah. Oh, the minus lettuce
Very high in
That's
C.
everywhere.
stems are so easy to eat and chew on and spit out a little bit. And it's been a blast. And Teresa and I were talking about how I always do yoga as well, because basically gardening could have been the way the yoga was invented. You just, if you bend your right way, and you can, you're trying to lean down to do something, so it's one leg out and then it's the other leg out and all the fun things. It's just a great way to get good
That
stretching.
sounds good.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Monica,
Any chance you got.
I'm gonna answer her question though, which was, so the cleanse, the way I do cleanses is there's various levels. And
Yeah, I've
so,
seen that.
okay, so there's the umbrella, and you can go all the way down to a daily challenge of fasting. So that,
Right.
and because I get all different walks of life with this, and I'm not going to shove somebody out of McDonald land into a fast.
Right.
They're not going to do it. They're not going to comply. And that's what came up last time. See, we had the non-compliance laughter last time. See, so then I might poke though, like I might say, hey, Mary, I'm going to poke you into a weekly challenge of doing this, this, and this. There just isn't that many people that are comfortable with going to these really deep levels, because that's where is it? Psychic phenomena. Oh, psychic phenomena there. The psychic phenomena is we start to open up and our gates open up, and then we feel other people's shit and we feel our own shit more. And then it can be really tough to be out in public. And Monica, I'm just telling Monica that I worked really hard this week, didn't get enough downtime. And then my edge is nausea. It means I've stomached too much psychically.
Yeah.
because we can only digest a certain amount. And if we do it all up here and in our heart, then our body doesn't digest. If we do it all down here, then we can't feel emotionally. That's how I stuffed my emotions, was overeating for a good part of my life. Just stuffing food, and you understand, stuffing food and thinking it's so yummy. And then when I'm realizing years later, I was like, I was stuffing my emotions to armor myself. I was putting armor around my heart because I didn't want to feel all the pain. And a lot of us are in that. We don't know until we know. Until we look back and go, wow, I was in the fog bank. I'm thinking I was in the clear skies. But I actually wasn't. It's sort of horrifying, and there's a grief with it. I mean, when I woke up full bore, 39 years old spiritually, I had a major 4 or 5 days of grief. I mean, just sobbing my eyes out of how much I wasted my life by selling myself out, by not actually going into my invisible friends when I was 4 years old. So I was told, don't talk to invisible spirits when I was a kid because people think you're crazy. It's the wrong thing to tell a kid. And so all of us have a version of that because we're all empathic to some degree. I got a brand new client, this young lady, her mom brought her in. Guess what? She doesn't know in the day-to-day life whether she's dreaming or in reality. That's how woo-woo she is. And guess what my job was? Yeah, she walked out 2 hours later, and I knew very quickly, like, the main thing that needs to walk out was, so I shared my whole story with her, and she walked out of here beaming, because then she was validated for all her weirdness. You know, she got the same story we all got. Why are you so sensitive? How many times I heard that in my life? Craig, don't be so sensitive. You sensitive guy.
Yeah.
You know, you hear the guys, probably all of us have heard that to some degree from our family. Oh, why are you so sensitive? You're such a crybaby. Yeah, because I'm human and I can feel shit. No, you're all numbed out on coffee and alcohol. Get the fuck away from me, man. I wish I could have said it to my parents when they were younger, when I was younger. Great. So I wrote down a couple of things here. And here's the TMI part. This is the fun part. So you guys are, some of you are fairly new. I have a 4 foundation system. Conceptually, I came up with it because if you don't have a foundation set on your house will never sit right. So there's these foundations for health. And when we're cleansing, we're stimulating foundation 3, which is detoxification and decongesting, and foundation 4, which is drainage. So your drainage pathways are, do you poop? Do you pee? Do you sweat? And most importantly, do you breathe properly? Our skin and our breath are major routes of detoxification and drainage, and we just don't talk about it. And we can control our breathing quite easily. Can't control our bowels as much unless you're doing, you know, like you could do heavy salt water or magnesium or whatnot. I'm kind of an expert with that. And you can control your peeing, I guess, by holding it. Yeah, I guess you could. And then sweating, I mean, that's a pretty tough one to control, right? You know. So, Jonty, you can't answer this, but so if you sweat, if you don't sweat, what does that mean?
These are getting toxic.
That's right. Your skin isn't respirating. That's right. And what happens if you sweat too easy? Like you just sweat at the drop of a hat. You can't answer. I think you know what it is. Got you in the food coma. Maybe you can't.
Yeah.
Something's working too hard. Like you're living in it.
Sweating too easy. You can answer, Jonty, if you want to try. Anybody want to try to take a gander at that? It's related to lung chi.
Lung chi shit.
Breathing? Is it breathing thing?
Well, one of my Chinese medical teachers talked about your kidneys are like, they grasp the lung chi and bring it down into the body. And so the asthmatic, I was just telling this asthma patient about this, like you've got to breathe from your pelvis. You breathe down into your pelvis because you're not rooting your lung chi. And so when you sweat too easy, your kidney isn't bringing your lung chi down and it's going back out the pores. So it's weak adrenals. Weak adrenals can cause sweating too easy. because the adrenals are the electrical component of the kidney. You know, the adrenal literally sits on top of the kidney like that. They call it the suprarenal. The supra meaning on top. And it's not very big. It's probably only about, they're probably only about that big, actually. The bottom of probably about that big.
When it's more struggle.
Pardon?
When it's more struggle, it's when it's adrenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's shrunken, is that what you asked? Yeah, shrunken.
They just get contracted, you know, and tight. And we all, I mean, I have a chronic when I do caffeine, I get body work and down around T12, L1, T11. That right side, when it's painful to touch because the adrenal is acutely swollen when the caffeine's surging through, and then it shrinks up and is just irritated and inflamed. And we all have little markers of this. We don't know how to read the signs of the early warning signals, I call it. There's always early warning signals. And that's what I got a hard on for 25, 30 years ago, talking to these masters, you know, like, you know, one guy looked at me, looked at my face, looked at my tongue, took my pulses. 5 minutes later, he summed up my whole life. And I what? How do you know this? They go right there on your tongue, a little line there, and then the thing on your pulse here. What? So I said right then and there, I want a piece of that, you know. Krishna Das had it with Ram Dass too. Ram Dass went over to India and got all enlightened, and then he came back, and that's the story from Krishna Das, who he said he saw Ram Dass, and that's what his mind said. I want a piece of that. That guy looks like he's at peace. He looks like he's at peace. And Krishna Das's book is called Chants of a Lifetime. Chants. Great pun, because he's a chanter. Chants of a Lifetime. It's a great book. I've read 1,000 books about enlightenment because I got the enlightenment bug when I was a young man. I had to know. I had to know what enlightenment was, what the hell it's about, what's this phenomena, what is it, what is it, what is it, what is it? And then I went and sat for 14, 15 years, a lot of silent retreats, a lot of sitting. Because I was always a guy that wasn't going to take anybody's word for anything. I mean, right? How many of you remember, you know, Manifest Destiny in high school? That's when I woke up, age 15, US history. Manifest Destiny. I got so angry. It's like, what about the Indians? Yeah. What are they? Just chopped liver? Yeah. Just trample over them? They're not part of this equation? No, they're not. We were destined to rule this continent. Fuck you. It wasn't inclusive. And we have, as whites, we have a huge scar on our ancestry, especially in this area. They were brutal to the Indians here in Santa Cruz. They were brutal. The Amamutsan, you know, the Ohlone tribes. You know, the Ohlone is just a name for all the tribes. But one of my young men, yeah. So when I used to leave and come back, I would feel like Santa Cruz was cursed when I go to college and then come home and be like, I'm driving back into cursed land. And then I realized that's why I need to be here, because the natives lived through me, and the natives lived through a lot of you too. Yeah. The old native masters they're coming and speaking to us. One of my friends says, I'm a red man in a white man's body. I'm a red man in a white man's body. I couldn't relate more to that. That's great. So a couple of things I noticed on the cleanse that clients often struggle with enemas, for example. That's the TMI part I started. So when somebody says I can't do an enema, then there's follow-up questions. Well, could you get it in or not? I couldn't even get it in. Okay. I could get it in, but then I couldn't keep it in. Okay, that's another problem. I got it in and then it wouldn't come out. That's another problem. Imagine I have a quart of coffee inside you and it's not coming out, you know. This is why my career is so fascinating. So,
you know, what's really fascinating is when you use a stethoscope when you do a coffee enema, you can hear your liver talking and growling.
Oh, I got to do that. And you talked about that. I got to do that. Yeah, it's a great idea. Because that's what's happening is all this is going up over here, and no one talks about the portal veins. All the veins from the intestines go to the liver like this. And if they don't work well, then the belly goes out. It goes up like this. And so the growling is all this extra circulation coming in through the portal circulation. And then the liver is like, oh shit, I got some work to do. I got more stuff to deal with. But the coffee is also a solvent, so it's dissolving that sludge in the portal circulation. So all your pelvic problems, all your prostate uterine problems, all your vaginal problems, all your bladder problems, all your varicose veins, all your hemorrhoids, 99% of the time, it's stagnant portal circulation is the root cause.
Most cancer too, right?
Well, that's
Maybe not
really,
root cause, but includes-
cancer is so multifaceted.
Oh, no.
Cancer is like, psychic, emotional, there's always a trauma with cancer. But yeah, so going around, and then so if you can't even get the enema in you, that means your portal circulation is very clogged, because the pipes are so small that it won't go in and go that way, right? So it just sits in the colon, which can be very painful to have a quart or 2 quarts of water moving around, and it's supposed to be this fat, and now you've got this balloon. Because it's not going into the portal circulation, it's just sitting there and expanding the colon. I mean, I jiggle my stuff around and feel it's like, oh my God, I gotta get this. So, it's like, I gotta get this over here because it's big old balloon right here. And we're studying iridology in my assessment module with Monica. And you can actually tell through the iris, through the colored part of the eye, whether someone has prolapse, overly bloated intestines, tight strictured intestines. You can see it right in the eye. Bernard Jensen would look at people's eyes and he would go x-ray them to validate what he saw, to prove it.
Wow, that's awesome.
Because you have to. And he's still #1 on Quack Watch. You type in Bernard Jensen, the first thing pops up is Quack Watch. That's how you know he's good.
Yeah.
Type in Royal Lee Center Process, first thing pops up is Quack Watch. That's how you know these people are good. Right? When you hit #1 on Quack Watch, you've done really well. You've done really well, folks.
Scared somebody deep.
Yeah. So Jensen was of that old colon therapy line. Like there were a couple of really cool. Remember that guy, Charles Atlas? Before and after of Charles Atlas. Oh my God, there's some fun ones. So what I noticed was I did do the winter cleanse, but I didn't really do the winter cleanse very deep. I think I may have done 1 enema, and this time I did 2 enemas a week. So I did like 6. And by the time I hit the 5th or the 6th, I was laying on my new pulse electromagnetic field mat that was underneath me with a towel, and I put the enema in, and I swear to God, I've never had an enema go in where I didn't even realize it was all in. It just went in like butter, sliding down a hot steak. It was just like, whoosh. And I'm laying there going, I heard the little sound that it makes when it's done,
Right.
and I'm like, where'd it go? There's no pain, there's no discomfort, like, wow. And 4 or 5 enemas ago, it was like, forget it when I started. It took me 15 enemas I had to fight through. It was like horrible, body trying to get it out, spasming, cramping. And I got that quart of water in, cramping. And then I kept fighting through it because I was a Kegel guy. Kegels is another long story about semen retention and microcosmic orbits and tantra and whatnot. But fortunately, when you really develop your PC muscle down there, you can hold stuff in. And that's how I was able to do it. And then about enema 16, I told the story, passed out with a quart of coffee inside me and went into bliss. And I couldn't believe it when I came out of it. Like, what? So that's kind of how these enemas work. Very, very blissful. Eyesight improves. Mental clarity comes back. What else do you notice, Drew?
It's like a deep state of meditation. It's like I really go into a meditative state.
Clears up skin issues.
Can clear up skin issues for sure. Do I see my green smoothie?
Oh, under your chair.
Of course, it's right underneath me.
The question I have is why is coffee toxic to drink, but yet it's beneficial if you use it as a coffee enema?
Isn't it too bad you don't have taste buds down in your anus?
Edgar Casey that brought it all forward.
I would love to taste it going up there, like, yeah, I could at least taste it.
Then you'd want a latte and then.
I'll have a latte up the rectum, please.
Latte up the rectum,
Extra
not as
cream.
good as the ginger.
Okay, this is a great question, and that's why I introduced the topic too. Why is coffee not so good this end and good this end? It's something that I've been thinking about for upwards of 20 years. So what I've gotten back is there is still no hard and fast evidence about how much coffee enemas speed up detoxification. there's a claim that it speeds up liver detox by 700%, but there's no validation of that anywhere. So it's someone had seen it empirically or some questionnaire, but I would tend to agree with that. And they say it's because of the palmitic acid in coffee. It's one of the nutritional precursors to help the liver. And palmitic acid is just a fatty acid. So I don't know. Coffee is a solvent. So up this end, it's going to dissolve the sludge in the portal veins. Down this end, guess what it's going to do? It's going to dissolve your gastric mucosa.
Oh, not good.
And coffee is very acidic. It's right there on the acid alkaline chart. It's right there on the high acid side. So it's very irritating. That's why when I do a coffee enema with it, I always follow it up with a green juice enema afterwards to soothe the colon lining. Probiotic and green juice and or slime is the last enema. I do a 3 enema sequence.
Wow.
It's an hour, you know, I'm a pro at it now. So in this end, then you're taking the liver resources to break down the inflammatory compounds in coffee, versus this side, it's going in passively on the backside. So generally, I mean, granted, how late was I up last night? I finished my coffee enema about 6:30 last night, maybe 7. I think I was up till 12:31 actually. So I think it can be stimulating. But generally, I can go to sleep with the coffee inside me. So I believe that by this side, you're getting it coming around the backside of the liver and it's decongesting, and the caffeine is also doing this to the portal veins. When you got that going on, if there's a little microfilm in there or biofilm or sludge, it's going to loosen it up with the shaking. And then finally, caffeine also dilates the portal veins a little bit. So this end cuts off blood flow up here, 35%. I don't know that anybody's done an enema blood flow to the brain study, which would be interesting. Let's go do it.
But it's probably only bad for you because it's a drug and you do it every day of your working life. And you know,
Yeah.
and stuff you do every day is really going to have an effect.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
and it demineralizes your bones and it's acidic. And I know. And when you put it the other way, it's supposed to release glutathione, right?
Oh, yes, that's right. I used to drink a quart of raw milk after a coffee enema, and that's one of the highest sources of glutathione is raw milk.
That's another way to get the latte.
Now, my brother has done raw milk enemas.
Oh, no.
My brother has done raw milk enemas. I'm not joking, Drew. He made me laugh. I was thinking about a kefir enema. I said, oh, let's do a kefir enema, you know.
That sounds
Why
smart.
not? You know.
How did it work out?
He said it was great. He said it was great.
Under the
Are
sink.
there other ingredients that you?
On the right, under the sink.
So then that's back to, I've laughed about, you know, could you put your kefir in your coffee and you're like, ew, it tastes terrible, but not down there.
Not down there.
That is the kind of latte you should have down there. If it's kefir.
I should probably run through the 3 sequence. So the first enema, the point of the first enema is to clear the colon, the lower colon, so that you're not reabsorbing fecal matter back to the liver, because the coffee enemas, none of the enemas I do are clearing enemas. They're just retention enemas, because you're trying to clear out the portal veins. So the maximum amount of liquid in my enema sequence is a quart of liquid, no more than a quart. We're not trying to be heroes, because I did a colonic with a gallon of frickin' water, and it took me a year to recover.
Oh my God.
I had this whole ego thing. I was a young man, and I was over at the one on what's that one over on? Yeah, I was over at Ivy. I forgot who the therapist was, and she's like, "Well, I got 2.5, 3 quarts in there," and she's like, "You're not in discomfort. You want to go for another? Keep trying." And I was like, "I mean, you know what a gallon of water looks like, and how the hell does a gallon of water fit in there? I don't know where it went, but I know that my colon was like a balloon."
I do a gallon every time I do a coffee enema.
A gallon?
I do a gallon to rinse out the colon and get it ready to absorb the coffee. Yeah.
But not all at once?
Yeah.
That's amazing, Drew.
You mean you hold a whole gallon in your,
I
wow.
do it like tap.
You're as thin as
tap
me.
the colon, you know, and help break loose any.
You get a gallon inside you?
Yeah.
I've done more than part two. I do.
I'm impressed.
I didn't know that was supposed to be a big deal.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you might be stretching some stuff
Oh,
out.
yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah, I can feel it stretch out. Yeah.
Not overstretching.
You would know, you know your
Well, you
body.
don't
'Cause
do it
you're-
too often.
You're thin
I
like
do it
me. I
twice a
can see if you got a big old belly, but you don't, you know?
Yeah, no, really.
Yeah, you got no
It does
belly.
swell up when I put a gallon in, though.
I could imagine it's like a balloon right there, right? Oh
Well,
my
yeah,
God.
it gets a little uncomfortable.
Okay, so the point is all these veins, I should draw a little chart. All these veins in the intestines, I guess we don't need non-compliance right now, do we? And guanidine. I was going to talk about guanidine actually, because it's kind of an interesting. James brought it up. And now he's not even here. So you think like, oh, I gotta clear that whole colon out. But really what we're seeing, and forgive my horrible artistry here. I'm not a greatest artist. So let's see, there's we'll do colon is blue. And the liver will be in green. Liver in green. And then small intestine in red. And then black will be the portal veins, I guess. So the stomach has portal veins. The small intestine has portal veins. The large intestine has portal veins. The spleen has portal veins. The pancreas has portal veins. All the circulation from this area in the body goes back up to the liver. So you don't need to get it. All you need to do is get enough in you to get the solvent into the portal veins back to the liver. So my formula was a quart of water to clear the lower bowel. I can get a quart all the way over here because I have a tiny large intestine. My large intestine is literally just, it does a little loop right here and a little loop right here, but I don't have the big way up here and across and way down. I don't have that. And some of us are like me with this, you know, if you have a very, from the rib to the hip bone, if that area, see me, that distance is only like an inch. See that right there? That's the top of my hip bone and that's my lowest rib. See, that's not a very large ascending colon right there.
I don't have that.
You probably don't have a large colon either. Hard to say. And so clear that, you clear it out because the coffee enema, or you could do another dissolving herb like yarrow or celandine or artichoke leaf, and you want to get that dissolving herb in so you're not absorbing fecal matter back to the liver. That's the number one cause of people's problems that I see a lot of that don't have enough bowel movements is called auto intoxication. They're intoxicated in their own shit, literally. Their shit's being reabsorbed, the fluid, back to the liver. It's the merry-go-round of death is what it is. It's the merry-go-round, yeah. That's what people die of mushroom poisoning. That's what's happening. The liver is trying to break it down, excretes the poison out, goes in the intestine, gets reabsorbed in the portal veins, recontaminates the liver, comes back to another round. Because this portal circulation goes through every 3 minutes. It cycles every 3 minutes. So a coffee enema, you want 5 cycles. That's why minimum coffee enema time is 15 minutes. I extend it to 25 because I try to get more time in because it's so blissful now. It's wonderful to want to have that in there. It's strange for a heterosexual man to say that.
I go for 30 minutes myself.
I love stuff in my anus.
Yeah, strange for a heterosexual.
Right. I'm not afraid to out myself. And then so you don't have to do coffee for the second enema. I have found greater celandine is a great herb. It bleeds orange blood. When a plant bleeds orange blood when you break it, that's a sure sign that it's got an affinity to the bile. And then so the coffee is a little bit irritating. That's a 15-minute lie down on the right side because the liver's on this side of the body. So if you lay on your right side, it's going to encourage the circulation to go back to the liver. And then that gets dumped. And then the last enema can be something soothing, like you can boil flax seeds whole in water and then strain out the flax seeds and you've got a flax gloopy ball is what it is. It's like flax slime, I call it. And that's very soothing to the irritated coffee-induced colon now. What I do is I go out to my backyard and now that comfrey is growing again, I pick a ton of comfrey greens. And this time I picked plantain because plantain draws stuff out of the body. So I chose the comfrey for the soothing and the plantain fresh greens to draw anything that might be stuck in my colon. And then a probiotic. So I use the sauerkraut juice.
How do you get the juice out of the country?
Yeah, puree them with water. let them sit in the blender. Greens don't juice well, so I do a blended juice with all my greens. Blend them in water, let them sit for 10 or 15 minutes in the blended water, and then squeeze it out with my hands.
And the celandine, similar?
Same thing. Yeah, you can make tea with it.
Oh, so celandine's your first step.
Celandine is only a coffee alternative, or you could put it in with the coffee. So there's a lot of different routes you can go. I also did a cold and flu tea for my first enema. So you want the right amount of salt. Generally, that's a tablespoon of salt per quart of water is a good osmolality. And then I usually put in a couple 100 milligrams of magnesium from the liquid polar, the pH minerals, the ocean water magnesium. And then this time I just brewed tea. I made a cold and flu tea to decongest and wipe out any critters in there. And really effective. So this whole cleanse, I also did berberine. I'm on my last day of berberine tomorrow, and her husband and I had a great conversation about it. I'd never taken berberine in any form by itself in an isolate, and it really cleaned me out for a couple of days, literally like liquid for the first 2 days, running to the toilet 10, 15 times a day.
Wow.
And it's bugs. I was reading again, I got an ulcerative colitis patient that's stuck right now again, and just rereading, like, why is she stuck? It's been a year, she's on this plateau. And so when we get stuck, it's often because we have a micro infection in our intestines. And so for me, the berberine, it was a huge die-off reaction, what it was, which is the segue to our next topic at the end will be what's a healing reaction versus an illness. Because there's a lot of healing reactions. People, the amateur cleansing and the healers say, oh, it's just a healing reaction. And that's a cop-out. Like I was telling you about the SP detox shake. You might not be cleansing. It might be because the pea protein is causing a drop in energy because your body doesn't like the pea protein. It might not be a detox reaction at all.
No, but I think it is in my case.
You think it is in your case?
It feels similar to other detox reactions.
Okay, so you've done enough to know that.
Yeah, I mean, the burning eyes and, which is a liver,
Liver yang rising. The heat rises, right? So they talk about the liver heat goes up into the head. So when you see somebody with a big red tongue and a bright red face, you can almost guarantee their liver heat's just gone right up into their head, especially if they're angry, raging type, So you could also do, if you had like adrenal fatigue, you could put adrenal herbs in your first and second and third enemas, little bits of ginseng or gynostemma. You could do, instead of coffee, you could choose something else. Then for the last enema, there's lots of different greens. Wheatgrass juice works great. If you got enough wheatgrass, I mean, my brother went to the OHI down in San Diego, Optimal Health. You know about Loris?
Yeah.
My brother said, I mean, you can use wheatgrass. So he was doing it in his nose and his mouth, up his butt. He's like, wow, it was like a wheatgrass orgy, just in every orifice. He probably put it in his ears if he could have. Wheatgrass is very healing, and that's part of the old Gershon, Max Gershon's system. It was wheatgrass, raw liver juice, vegetarian vegan diet for the cancer he was working with. And then the rest was, there's little subtleties, but you don't even have to. I mean, I have a new cancer case, and I kept telling her, don't go back for a scan. I want to get the scan. I know precisely how big the tumor is, but you only have a certain amount of money. So you're going to spend all your money on diagnosis. You spent your wad on diagnosis, you got no money for treatment, for all the supplements you need and the herbs you need and the care you need. So I talked her out of it. And then she just got her medical insurance-based MRI back. And so she did put her money into treatment, put her effort into treatment. And her tumor shrank 1.5 centimeters in 2 months. So she's just overjoyed. Yay, it's working. 2 coffee enemas a week, clean diet. She was even willing to do raw meat. Which ties into the guanidine thing. So when you cook your meat's very high in glutamine. And when you cook meat, you deactivate, the glutamine becomes unavailable. And then this tissue poison, this is for James, called guanidine builds up in the body. It's very alkaline. And when you have those pains and aches and restless legs at night, or when your pain's worse when you're resting, that's guanidine poison. Guanidine poison. It's from a lot of reasons. And guess what deactivates guanidine? Two things. Guess what deactivates guanidine?
Magnesium.
Good guess. Well, sort of correct, sort of actually. What is magnesium at the center of in the plant blood molecule?
Chlorophyll.
Chlorophyll deactivates guanidine. So magnesium indirectly, yeah, through chlorophyll. What's the other one? DC Jarvis, Vermont folk medicine, talked about it a lot. Hint, hint. I've mentioned this book a few times in this guy. Which one of you buy the book? One of you guys bought the book. One of my clients bought the book and they're all proud of themselves. Look, I bought DC Jarvis. Yeah, Vermont folk medicine. So apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar deactivates guanidine.
Ah,
Yeah.
good morning. Yeah.
It's very effective before bed. If you have like, little toe cramps or aches and pains at night, restless leg, the apple cider vinegar. Also, if you take allergy medications and from hay fever and allergies, antihistamines will not work in an alkaline environment. So you've got to acidify the stomach while the antihistamine's in it, which means apple cider vinegar with your antihistamine. But I was a guy with hay fever, remember? I had 10 allergy shots in each arm from age 5 to age 18 every week for 13 years at Kaiser on Kylie Boulevard. That equates to 18,000 shots
What?
in my body from age 5 to age 18. Did it help my allergies at all? Nope.
No.
Not one bit.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Space egg aliens were coming out of me from the space egg stuff they were injecting into me. Yeah. So I understand allergies more than anybody. And I didn't beat my allergies until I cured my leaky gut. I shored up my adrenals, cured my leaky gut, and got my emotional cravings under control. Yeah, it was daily use of comfrey every day for 4 years is what did it. One of the main things. Comfrey tea, comfrey juice, comfrey enemas, comfrey up every orifice. Because it's a tissue cell proliferant. It causes cell proliferation. And so my teacher, Michael Tierra, I was very fortunate to have some great teachers. And he said, don't pay any attention to what the government says about comfrey. My teacher was using it for his whole life, and his teacher back 50 generations using comfrey. So I use it every day to prove my point. Oh, it's going to cause liver cancer if you use it too much. Pyridinosyl alkaloids. Again, it's this quackwatch bullshit. We've been propagandized so long, we don't even know what's real anymore. So then the other component with hay fever is weak adrenals. And usually there's low stomach acid in these people too. They're too alkaline. So the chronic obstructive pulmonary disorders, asthma and allergies, are from excess alkalinity, usually. The stomach isn't acidic enough. We talk about acid, everything, right? Acid's the whole cause of cancer and everything else. That's horseshit. That's complete horseshit. Some people are too alkaline, some are too acidic, and some just have good pH management.
And what about the thing that cancer can't live in an alkaline environment? Is that not true?
But you don't want to be over alkaline. That's
So,
what I'm hearing you say.
When we talk about pH, we need to talk about pH compartments. Your mouth has a certain pH it likes to be about 7.2. The blood likes to be 7.35. The blood can only vary between 7.35 and 7.45. So the blood can never be acidic by definition. Not ever. Not ever can the blood be acidic. Not at any time. If it drops down to 7.35, you die. So not ever can the blood be acidic. So this is why I hammer people. Oh, pH and cancer is alkaline acid. Shut up. Does the stomach, what's the stomach want to be when food's in there? What pH is the stomach? 2. Acidic. What does the small intestine want to be? About 8. What does the large intestine want to be? About 6.5. Am I proving my point? You have pH compartments in the body. And so I want to hear from a colleague about the pH compartments. Me and Michael McAvoy have gone back and forth on this one. because that guy's a genius. You know, him and I have hammered each other. What about pH compartments, you know? So we have to contextualize pH. It always needs context. And so you can take your saliva and your urine pH. Those are good ways to measure your pH. You know? Saliva is ideally about 7, 7.2, urine about 6.5. And that's what, you know, that's how you check this stuff. You got this look on your face, like, oh my God. Because I was willing to try anything. I got people that, I don't want to do enemas, I don't want to try, good luck with your life. But I wasn't meant to die. I could have died many times in this life. I've been on the other side 4 or 5 times. And given a choice, Spirit's like, you don't have to go back. Well, I got to go back. I'm not done yet. So I'm here for this. Why am I here? Well, this is the present moment. This is all that's real. So this is God. We're sharing, you know, the wisdom of, and this is, you know, he's a practitioner. We've got various practitioners in this room in varying degrees of skill and talent and differing talents. But really, I survived the initiations to give them back to you. Because as my teachers, all my teachers said, there's no guarantee you're going to survive your process. There is no guarantee you're going to survive your awakening. And I've seen many fall. We've all seen many people fall. So fortunately, here we are. Because we're in a world of chaos in World War III, and no one's talking about that bluntly, but that's what we're at. We're in World War III.
Greatest war against humanity yet.
Yeah, the Nazis, we didn't win World War II. Don't kid yourself, we never won World War II. Go ask Admiral Byrd when he went down to Antarctica and got his ships blown out of the water by the Nazis in Antarctica. Yeah, check out Admiral Byrd, 1946 and 47. Yeah, thousands of Nazis disappeared, and guess where they are now? They're here, and they made the vaccine.
Right.
This is, this is our new Nazi
Revenge.
criminal camp. Oh, they're getting revenge. I hate Americans. All right, back away from it. Okay, last thing. So there's this whole thing, it goes around a lot. How do you know the difference between a healing crisis and a real illness? We'll end on that. How do you know the difference between a healing crisis and an illness?
Well, a healing crisis must correspond with something you've taken or some process you've gone under to heal yourself.
So there'll be, with a healing crisis, you kind of know because you've initiated a process.
Right.
That's good, that's fair. What else?
Doesn't last that long.
That's the key word. A healing crisis usually passes in hours.
It's acute rather than chronic.
Yeah.
It's acute and it comes and goes. And it goes along with, one of the teachers calls it retracing. You're retracing what you went through and you're going back. So that's where this comes into play. These are the stages of degeneration right here. So it starts off with, you get mucus buildup and irritation. So what happens is you get to, like, I got a couple of clients with tumors. So there's encapsulation is like tumors, right? You encapsulate the poisons in a fibroid or a tumor or a cyst or a lipoma. That's congealed mucus, that's congealed poison. That's how the body wants to package it up and move it off somewhere where it doesn't have to deal with it. So you can go in reverse. That's why they call it retracing. You can go in reverse. And each one of these steps has emotions and thoughts associated with it. Each one of these steps has emotions and thoughts associated with it. And when you go in reverse, so what was one of mine? Right. So I was on a trip going down to teach in Pacific Palisades. I have a rich acupuncturist client down there, and I just love teaching at her house. And I got to San Luis Obispo. I was doing a parasite cleanse and parasite enemas. I was doing parasite herbs up my butt. And so I got to San Luis Obispo and I was trying to hold this, like, this feels different, like a different kind of bowel movement. And I went to this health food store in San Luis Obispo, ran in, and then what came out of me can only be described as black worms.
Oh,
Just
wow.
a bunch of noodly things came out of me. And then I got in the car and started to drive, and I was buzzing with energy, unlike I had never buzzed before.
Wow.
And that's not the healing crisis yet, because the parasites were liberated out of my body and my life force wasn't being sucked down by a parasite with a straw in me anymore. But what came the next morning was I had this rash. It was literally a perfect stripe right here. Perfect bright red stripe right here. Just above the belly button, just below the diaphragm. It's like probably about an inch. I woke up and it was horrendous. I was like, what is this? And I'd done enough cleansing at that point. This little voice in my head said, just write it out. It'll go away. An hour later, it was gone. I woke up with it, did my wake up stuff, and then it was gone an hour later. I was like, wow, classic healing crisis. That's a classic healing crisis. A client. This is not cleansing per se, but I was doing body work on a client. And this is a well-used story. You've probably heard it 5 times now, Monica. But I was hanging out on her back, right shoulder blade. The right area behind the shoulder blade is a lot of people's stuff, heart protector stuff. So I was on the spot, I was elbowing it, and she goes, stop there. And I go, why? She goes, I'm getting angry. Ooh, good shit. She goes, so I just did some myofascial. I just hung out there and kind of myofascial. Okay, rubbing around. And then 3 or 4 or 5 minutes went by, and then she was very quiet. And I said, what do you got? What happened? She goes, well, this memory surfaced when I was 8 years old. I was being groped by my uncle in a swimming pool when I was 8.
Oh,
And she had no recollection of that memory until I hit that spot
wow.
and released it.
Oh,
I don't know how many times I would pass something like the worms or the space egg alien, and then a memory from childhood of some suppressed material I hadn't fully processed would arise with it.
Wow.
And that's why a lot of people are afraid of cleansing, because they don't want to face their demons. You know, they talk about the Tibetan, I studied the Tibetan Book of the Dead because I was so fascinated with death. Talk about the bardos. This is a bardo, folks. This is a bardo. Yeah, this is a bardo, and we're here to get it. We got to get it. St. Matthew said, I die daily. That's what it's talking about. Die daily because I'm here. When you die, your ego goes away because the ego is a verb. It only thrives in movement. As soon as there's stillness, the ego disappears. That's why you get addicted to thinking. Thinking. Try to stop thinking.
Do you think that detox?
Hold on. Just put your hand up and then I'll come to you. So try to stop thinking. You can't. We're all addicted to thinking. We're addicted to thinking. You know how you make your mind stop? By letting it be. The mind will slow down when you let it be. It's like a child. You scold the child, it's a little bit mean. You be nice to the child, like what's the monkey mind? There's doubt. The old Chinese doubt about the monkey mind. So you don't yank on a puppy's chain when he's running away. You shouldn't do it with the mind either. You be gentle on yourself. Well, come back to the present moment and come back. Even if it's every second. Come back here, right here, come back here, right here. Half-hour meditation, I don't know, 50 times, right here. A minute, yeah, right here. So what else is a marker of a healing crisis? So there's duration is important. If it goes on more than a day, it's probably not a healing crisis. I mean, I've had a few that went on more than a day, but I had 18,000 shots in me, so I had some serious drainage to do. What else? You got the gist of it. I'm going to post on this video that goes onto YouTube. I'm going to post a description with a bunch of links, and I actually have a healing crisis document. I don't want to pull it up now because it takes too much time, but I'm going to have this last talk be in 2 different playlists on the YouTube channel, and then the healing crisis document will be there. And mainly, it's duration is the main one, and intensity. You have intensity is generally lower. And another big marker is your bowels generally don't change in a healing crisis, and your energy levels don't drop on a healing crisis.
Well, when you're detoxing,
I'm saying generally.
Okay.
Yeah. There's always exceptions. Like for you, the fatigue could have been the healing crisis. The fatigue is the healing crisis, right? Because we don't know if you have weak adrenals or not. You know, if your blood pressure is falling 20 points when you stand up, well, there's your cleanse, is rest those poor adrenals. That might be what's going on. Well, how long did you work around electricity for?
20 years.
See, I've worked on a lot of electricians bodywork wise, and that's a big EMF buzz, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
So there's a lot of buzz in your nervous system that's probably winding itself out over the years. You worked with electricity too, right? Yeah. Are you sensitive to it? Do you feel the buzz?
Not really, no.
Yeah, I don't feel it. But when I had leukemia, I was like, I was switched or in spin, they used to call it, which is affected by EMFs all the time.
You survived leukemia?
Yeah, stage 4
Wow.
Wow, dude. How'd you beat that?
with difficulty. They told me I might live till 2015. I got diagnosed in January 2010. And they said I might live till 2015 if I took as much chemo as they could throw.
Oh, God.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Oh my God.
2021, no chemo.
So, you know, I didn't do that. I didn't choose that route.
And you're still alive because you didn't. I'm glad you're still here, bro, to tell this story.
Right, yeah, I feel very blessed.
So there's no trace of it? It's gone?
You know, I don't test anymore. I haven't been to doctor
Okay.
for about 5 years.
Fair enough.
And there's probably still some there. You know.
See, people ask me, do you ever get tested for cancer or anything? And I was like, I don't get tested. I don't want to know. A client went in for a mammogram today and I'm like, why? Why?
Oh, those are really terrible.
I told her, you're going in for boob torture. Great, have fun with your boob torture. You know, like,
A lot of women are offered the alternatives.
thermography, right?
That, and then there's other ones that I just had in January, the ultrasound. You know, there's so many alternatives, but so many women are not offered them and don't know about them. And the number one easiest thing to get from their doctor is 2 orders of ultrasound.
Oh my God.
That's it. That does like 95% of it.
I mean, what kind of sadist developed this mammogram thing? You gotta be a sadist. You know, just,
Yeah, totally.
you gotta hate women, you know. Why not have it be comfortable for their breasts, you know?
Breast tissue, how sensitive can anything else get in life?
Yeah.
Here, put your scrotum in
Yeah,
this, you know?
I've never had one.
Yeah, here, man, put your scrotum in this.
Yeah, you don't even get a donut.
Tons of
for
reviews.
that.
You don't get a Krispy Kreme, man.
At least they
Imagine
give you a
being
donut.
like that and not even getting donut. Wow.
This is ridiculous. Yeah, I think it was designed by a misogynist.
Oh, yeah, someone to just totally sweep the hell out of your
Oh,
breast.
man.
Psychopath.
I was thinking
Oh.
too, women do get taught how to do self-exam, and probably the best thing we could do is keep talking about self-exam is a loving touch.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a loving touch, like when I'm in the shower, I'm always going between my
Yeah.
ribs. Yeah, partner as well, but just rub between your ribs and just, you know, rub your
All
skin,
over here,
exfoliate
to
with
the
your
side.
fingers, and you're just giving so much different energy to your body than we're used to or than we were taught. Right there, that's healing.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes the blockages of the cancer are hard peas, by the way.
Oh, we had another question over here, so I gotta get to your question now, because we're gonna wind this
You
up.
actually answered it while you were speaking. And it was the 18,000 shots, the detox, because, you know, that it was all those shots. It lingered when you said that. I was like, and then you said you could do this in reverse.
Yep.
And
So-
that's what I wanted you to finish was that.
So it's all reversible all the way down to destruction, ulcer, abscess. Everything's reversible. Then you get to tissue destruction. And so what's tissue destruction medically? What would be an illness called tissue destruction?
Autoimmune.
Multiple sclerosis would be tissue destruction.
Oh.
Gout would be tissue destruction.
Oh,
Parkinson's, tissue destruction.
Other brains.
Other brain anomalies, tissue destruction. Dementia, probably tissue destruction. Loss of, you know, when people get incontinent, you know, the longer you're incontinent, losing nephrons of the kidney, there's a point where you can't, they say you can't reverse when the kidneys are so far gone. I've seen some miracles though in my practice. So, yeah, it's pretty much all real. And I was the guy that I broke my neck and should have died. Had a concussion 9 years ago, should have died. Hit my head so hard 20 years ago on the corner of a table coming out of a forward bend, fell backwards because I was dizzy, clunked the back of my head and left my body. I'm floating up in the ceiling dead, going, wow, I don't have to go back. This is kind of cool. I'm not in pain. Maybe I won't go back, and then back in. And with all the pain associated with living in a dualistic body, living in a body of duality. But I think the main points about healing crisis is, if you're in a cleanse and you have a weird symptom, the first thing, like Jonty said, the first thing we should expect is like, maybe this is just a healing crisis, because we magnify our pain and suffering by the stories we say about our pain and suffering. I'm going to repeat that. We magnify our pain and suffering by the stories we tell ourselves about the pain and suffering.
Yeah, like the second arrow.
It's a secondary phenomenon. I was telling housemate about this the other day. She saw me getting angry about something. It's probably something to do with COVID. And she was massaging my shoulders and she's like, I don't like you when you're angry. And I'm like, why? What's wrong with being angry? I'm not going to go to the story again, but a number of years ago, I had a woman that said, you're going to be completely at peace. So I did her whole channeled process, completely at peace. And what I got out of it was, after 3 sessions with this woman, I was completely at peace with where I was, no matter where I was. The secondary voice left me. When I was angry, there was no voice saying I shouldn't be angry. And that was my teaching to her was, when you're angry, be there 100%. When you're sad, be there 100%. When you're joy, be there 100%. The secondary voice saying I shouldn't be where I am, that's the investigation. That's what needs the work. Good story from Ajashanti. One of these Zen masters was, he was like he was the guy, the master. And it was in a restaurant and the waiter walks up to him and says, hey, are you master blah, blah, blah? Oh yeah. Hey, your mother just died. Went into, just unabashed tears, wailing in the restaurant. Hundreds of people. The idiot students were leaving. They're like, oh, the master's lost it. But one of the senior students is like, you guys are idiots. Why don't you just watch a little longer and see what actually happens? So he cried for 5-10 minutes, cried his eyes out, collected himself, and then left normal. He was where he was. There was no inhibition. I shouldn't be sad in the restaurant. I cried in the freaking Santa Cruz Credit Union a couple of years ago. Teller asked me how I was doing. Girlfriend just broke up with me. I burst into tears in front of 50 people in the credit union. And I walked out and I was like, because it was after that experience, I was like, wow, I didn't even care. That was pretty cool. They're crying in front of 50 people. Huh. Because that's the only thing we've got. And so if there's part of this process here is going back to where above mucus is easeful life, is joy, is presence. And then right before mucus, okay, few of you have been to perform some of my more advanced stuff. What happens before mucus irritation, but comes after easeful, joy, connected, present moment stuff?
You mean in between the joy?
There's something
and the
subtle
first
that happens
like,
before the obvious symptoms come physically.
a little depression for sure.
But what is depression?
A little low, a little, I don't know, what is it? Sadness.
It's lack of ease in our earth suit.
Right. That
So
comes first before the
dis-ease starts when we don't feel at ease in our own body. The Ayurvedics call that vata derangement. I call it, in Chinese medicine, they talk about internal wind. I view thoughts like wind. So it's internal wind derangement. The windy skies internally, the clear, beautiful blue sky is gone, and now it's all windy internally. I'm not at ease in my own being. That's the genesis of suffering right there. So when we're not at ease, how do we know?
emotional state. Yeah, tip off.
What's a measurable parameter that we're not at ease? What's a measurable parameter? That's not measurable though. What's a measurable parameter? Because I'm into objective evidence. What's a measurable parameter that you're not at ease? That's good. That's good, but that's not what I was thinking of. Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Palpitation.
Something that's more prior to that though. it'll go out of whack before that stuff.
Is it emotional or
Depression,
physical?
depression.
Or
It's
both?
measurable.
Measurable.
Heart, blood pressure?
Blood pressure. Oxygen.
Well, blood pressure might elevate a little bit or go down a little bit. That's true.
Oxygen.
That's actually a pretty good one. Sleep. When your sleep's upset, then you know you're not at ease or you're not exercising enough.
So how do we stay at ease in the midst of all this insanity? Because everybody's going through it.
That's right.
Disconnect.
Well, it's kind of hard when you have to walk down the street and see, what you're saying.
Let's see a
So,
map.
that's a great question. And the word that comes in is
What do with our kids?
to lose,
Sharing all of this.
to let the identity shed. When we're in the moment, there's nothing happening but the moment. There's a story about the future. So when the story about the future disappears or is seen through, it's okay to have the thoughts. Thoughts are fine. Does the sky care if there's clouds in it? Pure awareness is like the sky. Thoughts are like clouds passing through pure awareness. Pure awareness doesn't care what's moving through it.
So when I get bogged down by what everything's going on, my thing to do is go out in nature and walk for 3-4 miles and look at the birds, look at all the animals, look at the trees and everything. Go, they have no idea that this is all going on.
Right.
Now I'm
Right.
to be like them in the moment. I'm looking around going,
Beautiful.
all I see is trees, clouds that make all kinds of shapes, breathing fresh air, walking along like I always have in nature.
That's it.
Just be in the moment. Right now, there's nothing going on that's wrong. Nothing
That's
wrong.
That's
There's
right.
nothing wrong. I know it's out there. And I should be aware of it, but I don't have to live it.
But right here, see, right here, there's you and me and
Yeah.
all of us,
Yeah.
and we're
everything's
safe
fine.
Yeah.
and we're connecting.
This is fine.
So this is great.
They're not affecting me.
It's the story we make about what it might be.
What it might be.
Yeah, what it might
We
be.
should think about it a little bit so we know how to live our lives, but really don't live there. Don't live there.
Yeah. And that's one of the aspects of cleansing that gives you is that clarity. And in the teaching group that I'm leading, one of the first things we talked about is discernment versus judgment.
Yeah.
What's the difference between discernment and judgment? Monica, you can't answer
Nah.
because he's been through this 10 times now. He's been through this 10 times now. What's the difference between discernment and judgment?
Discernment is seeing what's there, and judgment is putting something to it, adding
Right.
the value to it.
Great.
The difference is a moment,
Yeah.
of
Emotion.
perspective.
Discernment is neutral.
Yeah.
Judgment has a charge with it, an emotional charge. So I discern there's a picture with a butterfly. I hate butterflies.
Yeah.
See, there's the difference, right? There's the difference, right? Or you're out in nature, you're just discerning all these beautiful things around you. But then I hate sunny skies. I have a client, she avoids the sun because she feels like crap in the sun. Now that would suck.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
You know,
That
I
would suck.
avoided bright blue skies right after 9/11 because on 9/11 living in New York City.
Oh,
it
God.
was so bright blue that September 11th, like it was brighter than anything else. And so for about 12 months, I just said, oh, I don't want that blue. And then I got over it. Yeah, it's interesting.
So I gotta ask, I hear all these, conspiracy theories that there never was planes that flew into the towers.
That's right.
No, we, as New Yorkers, we went on top of our buildings and everything. We never saw planes. The only planes that were in over Manhattan that day, the next day, were bomber planes, so-called protecting us all night long. We couldn't even sleep. So the only planes we ever saw were
Huh.
when they came in with all the bombers or whatever those called 757s, but there were never any planes that. So when I'm walking down to work and all of a sudden they're like, oh, it's 908, the second building, bomb, like then
They were just detonated,
yeah,
yeah.
that's all.
The C.A. Baker's PSYOP, he'll explain it all
Yeah,
to you.
that's a good resource. Mhm.
So this was CGI stuff?
Yeah, CGI.
It was all
They-
CGI.
They used, they inserted a CGI into the news feed.
Yeah.
of the-
Because they kept playing it over and over and over again. So that was to give us PTSD, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's
Was
why
it-
there's no debris anywhere of any aircraft around that building.
Right, no, the only.
Yeah.
thing
That's what I
on
always
the
wanted to
ground-
ask, where's the debris?
Yeah,
Right?
the only thing on the ground in Manhattan was one thing. It
Passport,
was
Passports.
paper,
passports, newspaper, and the dust of the people in the buildings, and that what was in my lungs, and I had to detox that. It was, that flu was over me, and it was a remarkable thing to try to detox.
I heard it was like smoking, 'cause it was so hot from the thermite, whatever they were using to blow it up.
Smoking for weeks, we had fires for weeks.
Well, there's evidence of thermite and a controlled demolition, but there's also evidence, according to Dr. Judy Wood, of a directed energy weapons.
Oh, of course.
So they put both those together to really confuse it. So you get one group arguing with the other group.
Oh, divide and conquer.
Yeah, right.
Yet again.
It's very well, but if you look at the actual evidence, it's really obvious.
And we're not out of 9/11. Still happening.
Not
We're-
discernment,
We're not
but
out.
just-
They got away with 9/11, so now they're doing COVID-19.
Yeah, they wouldn't-
Right,
they
right.
would have gotten
Right.
COVID-19 without what's that thing they did, the horrible law that they did right after 9/11, they put the reason that they can even do COVID-19, I forgot the name of it because it's late, but basically, yeah, it's all one thing.
National
Oh, there was something
Authorization.
today.
A lot of things, I can't remember the name of it.
You guys, I'm gonna bring this back because we're on, I'm gonna have to edit all this out because we don't want all this in. Do we want to, any questions that you want on film that others might benefit from? We had a couple of great questions and shares tonight. I didn't even really realize where I was gonna go, but the healing crisis part and the early warning signals are just, those are two of the things that I love to teach. Is because if you can catch yourself before you get a cold, you can wipe a cold out in 6 hours. At the first sign of symptoms, if you nail echinacea, you nail the herbal stuff, and you nail your supplements, you can get it before it goes into the other part of the immune system.
You showed us a picture after explaining that there's portal veins, not just with the liver or the stomach to the liver and the spleen to the liver, all those different things, but they all go to the liver, all the portal veins go to the liver. And that's how many organs go to the liver with portal veins?
As far as memory serves me, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, pancreas, spleen. What else is down there?
Kidney,
Kidneys.
Kidneys don't go to the liver.
Oh, really?
stomach, did you say?
Stomach does, yeah.
Did you already say it? You might have.
Not kidneys. Yeah, it's all the digestive support organs.
6 or 7.
So, and then fat doesn't go through the portal veins. When we eat fat, it goes into the lymphatic system, something called a lacteal, LACTEAL. Goes into these lacteals and it goes into the lymphatic vessels. And then it dumps out right up the greater subclavian vein, dumps it out right above the heart. So when you eat too much fat, that's why you might get tired after a meal, because it's dumping all that fat. It's getting absorbed. And then it's not even being processed that much. And it's dumping out right above the heart. And then it's going to the liver indirectly through the bloodstream after that to be processed. So that's why you want to do, when you measure your triglycerides and your lab work, you want to do a 12-hour fast. Because if you eat fat at a meal, it's going to take a certain amount of time to clear all that from the bloodstream and the lymphatic system.
But it goes differently if it's a protein type and needs a lot of fat like you.
Yeah, so that's one of the mysteries I'm kind of currently working on is how does that look? Because so blue-eyed people are generally slow in the lymphatic system, and I'm one of those blue-eyed people. So my fat digestion, I couldn't eat, I mean, maybe this much, I love butter my whole life, but I can only eat a certain amount and I get nauseous. And now I can do, I proved to point to a few people, a whole stick of butter. Just go. This client challenged me, this nurse, and she thought she was pretty hot stuff. So, because you can't eat that much fat. We got a 2-hour appointment. You want to make a bet? So I just shoved a whole stick of butter in my mouth.
Oh, dear.
That's fine. That's fine. Now, a carb type doing that would have been nauseous and felt horrible, probably diarrhea. So, because my lymphatic system was working better and my biliary system's working better. And, bile is like soap. Usually all bile really is. It's sort of like soap. It emulsifies it. And then the pancreatic juices and the little border cells in the intestine are what finishes that breakdown and getting it into the body. Good question. So yeah, if you're having trouble with fat digestion, then you want to look at your lymphatic system, certainly. And the spleen's part of that. And then, yeah, I have a couple of new clients. I'm just shaking my head. The blood type A, blue-eyed. This guy I was looking at today. I'm like, oh my God. So There's a couple of new people that are going to be, they're going to be a long journey because you got to start square one. So the portal veins are actually, the enemas are the best way to dissolve that. And the second best way is probably castor oil packs. That's back to Edgar Casey again. He really championed the castor oil stuff. Did that answer the question? Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, so in terms of the effect, what is the difference between an enema versus
Colonic.
a colonic?
Oh, okay. So a colonic is pumped
Other
into
than
you.
the price.
A colonic is pumped into you, right?
Yeah.
An enema is passive. And Jensen developed something called a colema board, which I thought was fascinating. It was like a piece of plywood on a slant, and then you'd hang the enema thing above it, and you could regulate how fast it was going into your body. So however high I hang my enema bucket determines the speed it's going into me. Right now it's only about this high, and that's why it went in like butter, because if it was up this high, it rushes in too fast. So a colonic is something I say you might do a sequence of 3 in a row, 3 every week for 3 weeks, and then wait a year, because you're clearing out everything, and that's not good for the flora, because the flora wants to build up, and the large intestine has by far per unit of volume more bugs than anywhere else in the body. Small intestine second, and not very many in the
So what
stomach.
if they do an implant afterwards?
What they what?
Do an implant afterwards?
Sure.
Because I do it once a month.
Colonic
An
once a month.
implant. Mhm. Is that too much?
Yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
Yeah, it's back to stretching out those proprioreceptors over and over again. And when I started my enemas, before I started my enemas 20 years ago, I knew a woman who was a yoga teacher here locally. And some of you might have met her. She's gone now, but she couldn't function without enemas.
Mm.
And that's what I get afraid of
Yeah,
with the monthly colonic, is like start stretching that stuff out. And oh boy, I've seen more than a few people in 50s, 60s, 70s where I can't have a bowel movement without a fucking enema.
Oh,
Horrible.
That would be
Can you
bad.
imagine?
yeah. I would do that.
So the other piece with that is often slow bowels are correlated with slow thyroid. Fast bowels correlated with fast thyroid. Hyperthyroid, diarrhea. Low thyroid, constipation.
So how do you do with thyroid? I mean,
Well, the number one nutrient for the thyroid that we're all deficient in is iodine.
right. What about raw thyroid compounds?
So I fart around with it with some people. You can get, Dr. Fitz has a little 37 gram thing and up to 125. The ancestral, there's this new product line. I'm really kind of excited about it. And they've got some thyroid mixed with liver. I have trouble, I sell an adrenal desiccate. Standard Process sells an adrenal desiccate. And so when you take adrenal desiccate or brain desiccate or thyroid desiccate, then you start telling your body not to make the hormone anymore. And so again, that's back to this dependence cycle we can get stuck in. I got no problem with using it though if we need to, because they've seen in low thyroid cases, if you're taking your iodine, you're taking your selenium and all your support nutrients to run the Symporter system escalator, because iodine's a big old molecule. Most of your molecules in your body are like that big. Iodine's like this big. So it needs a special shuttle to get into the cell called the Symporter system. And there you got to have vitamin B1, B2, vitamin C, zinc, selenium, magnesium. And you got to load those in for a few months so that you get the escalator running. And then the iodine doesn't sit in the bloodstream. So what happens if you don't absorb the iodine into the cells, it starts circulating around and then it causes low thyroid symptoms. That's why a lot of people take iodine and they feel like crap, but they haven't prepared for it properly. And this is all pretty much based on David Brownstein's work. He has a great book on iodine and the thyroid. David Brownstein, MD. Surprised he's still alive.
I'm surprised he is too.
Yeah, Guy Benjamin, they took him out and they took out Nicholas Gonzalez. And those were a couple of my iodine guys. And maybe they took out Randy too, we don't know. They might have taken out Randy. Better protect me. Me and Carl are next.
What is that, stress salt? What are you just spit on the ground?
Cancel,
No, but when a new
Cancel,
person comes into
cancel,
these
cancel.
dinners, we better see what's in that food, you know?
Oh, yeah, we got a new person over here. What are you putting in our food? You're an operative. If you know this guy, there's no chance you're an operative. He's already vetted you.
I'll vouch for her, I know her a long time.
So yeah, I had, I mean, desiccated thyroid, great.
I
So
just ordered some, I'll show it to you. when we have our appointment.
You just don't want too much at once,
Yeah,
because
I just
then,
thought maybe like occasionally, like maybe once a week or maybe once a month.
okay, let's talk.
Just a little shot of it. you know.
Fascinated by,
Shot of what?
Raw thyroid.
okay, any other questions? This is still on film. I'm gonna turn off the recording, it looks like. Okay, folks, this is the end of our 3-week cleanse, but there'll be one more talk next week on cleansing.